Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the stars drift past the main screen of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. The ship was 3 days out from Earth's outer colonies when the distress signal came through the communication system. The voice was strange and harsh, speaking in a language the computer could barely translate. "This is Commander Crix Tal of the Zephyrian vessel Void Talon. Our ship is damaged, and we require immediate assistance. Any vessel receiving this message, please respond." Jake looked at his crew. Pilot Lisa Carter turned from her controls with raised eyebrows. Engineer Ben Collins stopped his work on the power systems and walked over to the command area. Dr. Amy Stewart, their xenobiologist, was already pulling up files on her tablet about the Zephyrian species. "Captain, the signal is coming from the edge of the Kepler system," Lisa said. "That's about 6 hours away at full speed." Jake knew about the Zephyrians from the basic files all human ships carried. They were a warrior race that controlled a large part of the galaxy. Their ships were massive and powerful. They believed in honor and strength above all else. Most importantly, they looked down on humans as a weak and primitive species. "Amy, what do you know about their culture?" Jake asked. Dr. Stewart looked up from her tablet. "They value martial prowess and direct action. They consider asking for help to be shameful, especially from species they see as inferior. If they're sending a distress call, they must be in serious trouble." Ben scratched his beard. "Captain, their technology is way ahead of ours. If they can't fix their own ship, what makes them think we can help?" Jake considered this. The smart thing would be to report the distress call to the nearest Earth military base and let them handle it. But that would take days, and by then it might be too late. Despite what the Zephyrians thought about humans, Jake couldn't ignore someone in trouble. "Set course for the Kepler system," he ordered. "Maximum speed." Lisa's fingers danced over her. "Controls." "Aye, Captain. Course laid in." The Horizon's Edge was not a military vessel. It was designed for exploration and research, with basic defensive systems and a small crew of 12. As they traveled toward the distress signal, Jake wondered what they would find when they arrived. 6 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. The Zephyrian battlecruiser Void Talon was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their own ship. But it was clearly in trouble. Massive holes were torn in its hull, and debris floated around it in a wide cloud. "My God," whispered Lisa. "What could do that to a ship like that?" Jake opened a communication channel. "Void Talon, this is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your distress call and are here to assist." There was a long pause before the reply came. The voice was deep and filled with what sounded like barely controlled anger. "Human vessel. I am Commander Crix Tal. Your ship is small, and your species is weak. How do you propose to help us?" Jake kept his voice calm and professional. "Commander, we may not have your advanced technology, but we have skilled engineers and medical personnel. Sometimes a fresh perspective can solve problems that seem impossible." Another long pause. Jake could imagine the Zephyrian commander struggling with his pride. Finally, the response came. "Very well, human. You may approach and dock with our ship. But do not expect gratitude from warriors." As they moved closer to the massive alien vessel, Ben worked on modifying their docking systems to match Zephyrian standards. Dr. Stewart prepared her medical kit, knowing that alien physiology would be completely different from human biology. Lisa carefully maneuvered their small ship toward the docking port on the battlecruiser's side. The docking process took 30 minutes. When it was complete, Jake selected a small team to board the alien ship. He took Ben for his engineering skills, Amy for her medical and scientific knowledge, and 2 security officers named Tony Clark and Susan Ford. The airlock opened with a hiss, and they stepped into another world. The corridors of the Zephyrian ship were huge, designed for beings much larger than humans. The walls were dark metal with strange symbols carved into them. The air was thick and smelled of ozone and something else they couldn't identify. Commander Crix Tal met them in the docking bay. He was over 7 feet tall with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large and yellow, and they looked at the humans with obvious disgust. 2 other Zephyrians flanked him, both carrying weapons that looked like they could vaporize a human with 1 shot. "So these are the humans who think they can help us," Crix Tal said in English that was heavily accented but understandable. "You are even smaller than our files indicated." Jake stepped forward. "Commander, we're here to help. Can you show us the damage?" For the next 2 hours, the human team toured the damaged battlecruiser. The ship had been attacked by Zephyrian pirates, outcasts from their own society who raided merchant vessels and military ships alike. The pirates had used some kind of new weapon that disrupted the ship's power systems and left massive holes in the hull. Ben examined the engineering systems, while Amy worked with injured Zephyrian crew members. The aliens were surprised when she was able to treat their wounds using basic medical principles that worked across species. Meanwhile, Jake studied the tactical situation with Commander Crix Tal. "The pirates will return," Crix Tal explained. "They know we are helpless. They will come back to finish what they started and take whatever they want from our ship." Jake looked at the sensor readings. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps 6 hours, maybe less." Ben approached them with a worried expression. "Captain, I can fix their main power, but it will take at least 8 hours. The damage is extensive." Jake felt the weight of the situation. They couldn't outrun the pirates, and they certainly couldn't outfight them. The Horizon's Edge had basic weapons that would be useless against pirate warships. But he had an idea. "Commander, what if we don't fight them the way they expect?" Crix Tal's yellow eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, human?" Jake pulled up a display showing the local asteroid field. "Your people value direct combat and honorable victory. The pirates probably expect the same from us. But what if we use tactics they won't anticipate?" "You speak of cowardice and deception," Crix Tal said with disgust. "I speak of survival," Jake replied. "Sometimes the best way to win is to make your enemy think they've already won." Before Crix Tal could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lisa's voice came over Jake's communicator. "Captain, we have multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 3 pirate vessels, all armed and heading our way." Jake looked at Commander Crix Tal. "Trust me, Commander. Let us try our way." The Zephyrian warrior's pride warred with his practical need for survival. Finally, he nodded. "Do what you must, human. But know that if you fail, we will all die without honor." Jake activated his communicator. "Lisa, start broadcasting a fake distress signal. Make it look like we're abandoning ship. Ben, can you make it appear that the Zephyrian vessel is completely dead?" "Already on it, Captain," Ben replied. As the pirate ships approached, Jake implemented his plan. The Horizon's Edge would appear to flee in panic, while the Void Talon would seem completely powerless. When the pirates moved in to board and loot the battlecruiser, they would discover too late that both ships were very much alive and ready to fight. The next 30 minutes would determine whether human cunning could overcome superior firepower, and whether a proud Zephyrian commander could learn to respect the species he had always considered beneath his notice. Ambassador Helen Price walked through the gleaming corridors of New Harmony, the massive space station that served as the center of galactic government. The station was a marvel of engineering, built by 12 different species working together, though not always in harmony. Each section reflected the culture and needs of its builders, creating a patchwork of architectural styles and environmental systems. Helen was heading to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Word had spread quickly about the incident between Captain Morrison's crew and the Zephyrian battlecruiser. The official reports were still being processed, but rumors traveled faster than official communications in the galaxy. She entered the council chamber, a vast circular room with seats arranged in concentric circles. Each species had their designated area designed to accommodate their specific physical needs. The Zephyrians sat in elevated positions that emphasized their height and military bearing. The Nexari, a logical species that resembled tall, thin humans with blue skin, occupied seats, equipped with computer interfaces. The Kalthani, who looked like upright bears with 6 arms, had reinforced seating to support their massive bulk. Helen took her place in the human section, which was still considered a minor area despite humanity's 50 years of membership. She was the only human representative present, while most other species had delegations of 5 or more members. Council Speaker Varix Prime, a Nexari with silver skin and large black eyes, called the session to order. We are here to discuss recent reports concerning human behavioral patterns that have raised concerns among several member species. Commander Threxnal of the Zephyrians stood first. He was even larger than Crix Tal, with battle scars covering his blue-gray skin. The humans violated all accepted protocols during their encounter with our damaged vessel. They used deception and cowardly tactics against honorable pirates. Helen almost smiled at the phrase honorable pirates, but kept her expression neutral. Commander, my understanding is that Captain Morrison's actions saved both his crew and yours. The pirates were driven off and the Void Talon was able to complete repairs. That is not the point, Threxnal replied angrily. The humans refused to fight with honor. They used tricks and lies. Worse, they risked their own lives to protect a ship full of beings they had never met. This behavior is illogical and dangerous. Trade Minister Coltem of the Kalthani lumbered to his feet. His species controlled much of the galaxy's commerce, and they understood profit and loss better than anyone. The humans have been displaying similar patterns in our trade sectors. Human merchants regularly provide assistance to competitors, share profitable information with rivals, and sometimes even help failing businesses that should be allowed to collapse naturally. Helen had heard these reports. Human traders often formed partnerships with alien merchants, teaching them Earth business practices and sharing resources. To species that viewed trade as warfare by other means, this cooperation was baffling and threatening. Dr. Zenth Ka, a Nexari scientist, accessed her computer interface and projected data into the center of the chamber. Our preliminary analysis shows that humans consistently act against their own immediate self-interest. In 17 documented cases over the past 6 months, human vessels have responded to distress calls from ships belonging to competing species, economic rivals, and even former enemies. The data showed incident after incident. Human rescue ships pulling Zephyrian warriors from destroyed vessels. Human medical teams treating wounded Kalthani traders who were direct competitors. Human explorers sharing star charts with alien survey teams, reducing their own advantage in claiming new worlds. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of Kepler 442b, the mining colony was preparing for another day of work when the alarms started screaming. Colony leader Ryan Murphy rushed to the command center where his assistant Katie Webb was monitoring sensor readings. "What's the situation?" Ryan asked. "Void Stalker raiders, at least 5 ships," Katie replied. "They're coming in fast and our defense grid won't stop them." The mining colony was a joint venture between humans, Kalthani traders, and Nexari researchers. Each species had their own section of the settlement, and normally they worked together only when absolutely necessary. But Void Stalkers were pirates who attacked any settlement regardless of species. Ryan activated the colony-wide communication system. "All residents, this is Colony Leader Murphy. We have incoming raiders. All defensive personnel report to your stations immediately." Security Chief Maria Santos was already suiting up in the armory when Ryan arrived. Her second-in-command, Paul Henderson, was checking weapon systems. Both were experienced former Earth military personnel who had volunteered for frontier duty. "Maria, what's our defensive capability?" Ryan asked. "We have 40 human security personnel, basic defensive weapons, and some mining equipment we can weaponize," she replied. "Against 5 raider ships, we're seriously outgunned." Paul looked up from his weapons check. "Sir, the Kalthani have their own security force, about 30 personnel. The Nexari have defensive systems around their research facility. If we coordinate, the Kalthani won't risk their people for human lives," Ryan said. "And the Nexari will calculate that helping us isn't worth the potential losses." Maria finished sealing her armor. "Maybe, but we're going to ask anyway. No one deserves to face these raiders alone." Ryan made a decision that would have surprised most galactic observers. Instead of focusing solely on defending the human section of the colony, he sent security teams to protect the Kalthani trading post and the Nexari research station. When the raiders landed and began their attack, they found unified resistance where they expected factional chaos. Trade Master Gorth Ven of the Kalthani was shocked when human soldiers took defensive positions around his warehouses. "Why do you protect our goods?" he asked Maria Santos over the communication system. "Because we're all in this together," she replied while firing at approaching raiders. "Today it's your warehouses, tomorrow it might be our homes." Dr. Quinnell of the Nexari was equally confused when Paul Henderson's team reinforced her laboratory's defenses. "This action provides you no logical benefit," she stated through her translator device. "Lady, if those raiders get into your lab, they might find something dangerous," Paul said while setting up defensive barriers. "That could hurt everyone on this rock." The battle lasted 6 hours. The raiders expected to face divided resistance from 3 separate groups competing for survival. Instead, they encountered coordinated defense from species working together. Human security forces shared their weapons with Kalthani traders. Nexari researchers provided tactical analysis to human commanders. Kalthani mechanics helped repair damaged human equipment during the fight. When it was over, the raiders retreated with heavy losses and minimal gains. The 3 species had not only survived, but proven that cooperation could overcome superior numbers and firepower. Back on New Harmony, these reports were reaching the Galactic Council through official and unofficial channels. Ambassador Helen Price found herself fielding questions about human motivations that she struggled to answer in ways other species could understand. "Ambassador Price," said Dr. Zenthka during a private meeting after the council session, "can you explain why your people consistently act in ways that contradict basic survival instincts?" Helen considered the question carefully. Dr. Zenth-Ka, may I ask you something? When you were young, did anyone ever help you when you needed it? The Nexari scientist's large black eyes blinked slowly. Of course. My parent units provided necessary resources for my development, and educational institutions gave me required knowledge for my career specialization. But what about someone who had no obligation to help you? Someone who gained nothing from assisting you? Dr. Zenth-Ka was quiet for a long moment. No. Such behavior would be illogical. Helen nodded. That's the difference between our species. Humans learned long ago that sometimes the most logical thing to do is something that seems illogical in the short term. The reports kept coming. Human freighter Captain Eric Stone had diverted his cargo run to help a stranded Zephyrian patrol ship, sharing his food and medical supplies with warriors who openly despised his species. Human diplomat Karen Walsh had spent weeks mediating a trade dispute between two alien species asking for nothing in return. Human colonists on 3 different worlds had shared their agricultural techniques with struggling alien settlements, reducing their own competitive advantage. Each incident was small by itself, but together they painted a picture that disturbed many species in the galaxy. Humans were not following the established rules of galactic civilization. They were not acting in their own species' best interest. They were helping competitors, assisting enemies, and showing mercy to those who showed them none. Dr. Zenth-Ka compiled all the data and prepared her preliminary report. Her conclusion was troubling. Humans appeared to suffer from a galaxy-wide psychological condition that made them fundamentally different from every other known intelligent species. This condition drove them to engage in self-destructive, altruistic behavior that violated every principle of evolutionary survival. What made this even more disturbing was that human tactics, while seemingly illogical, were proving remarkably effective. Dr. Zentara 9 sat in her laboratory aboard the research station Omega Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from across the galaxy. As the Nexari Union's leading behavioral analyst, she had been tasked with understanding the growing reports about human activities that seemed to violate every known principle of intelligent species behavior. Her assistant, the Artificial Intelligence Unit Alpha 7, materialized as a blue hologram next to her workstation. Dr. Zentara 9, I have compiled the latest incident reports involving human subjects. The data continues to support your hypothesis. Zentara 9's large black eyes focused on the scrolling information. Each report detailed another instance of humans acting in ways that defied logical explanation. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore, and it was spreading across multiple sectors of galactic space. Show me the Terra Nova incident, she requested. Alpha 7 brought up a detailed file about the agricultural world of Terra Nova. The planet had been jointly colonized by humans and the Althani, a species that resembled large insects with multiple limbs and compound eyes. The two species had agreed to divide the planet's surface and work separately to avoid competition and conflict. Human agricultural supervisor Dale Morgan had been managing the human settlements when he learned that the Althani colonies were failing. Their traditional farming methods were not working in Terra Nova's soil conditions, and their crops were dying. Within a standard year, the Althani would face starvation. The logical response would have been for the humans to allow the Althani to fail, then claim their territory once they abandoned the planet. Instead, Dale Morgan had organized a team of human agricultural experts to share their soil treatment techniques with the struggling Althani farmers. Computer, analyze the economic impact of Dale Morgan's decision. Zentara 9 commanded. Alpha 7's hologram flickered as it processed. The data. Human agricultural output on Terra Nova decreased by 12%, as resources were diverted to assist Althani settlements. Human territorial claims were reduced by approximately 30%, as Althani colonies stabilized and expanded. From an economic perspective, this assistance cost the human colonists significant potential gains. Zentara 9 nodded grimly. And yet they continue this behavior. Show me the Walsh transportation reports. The data shifted to show the activities of human transport Captain Karen Walsh, who operated a medium-sized cargo vessel called the Stellar Wanderer. Over the past 18 months, Captain Walsh had responded to 47 distress calls from various species. In 31 of those cases, the distressed vessels belonged to direct competitors in the shipping industry. The reports showed Captain Walsh rescuing stranded Kalthani traders whose cargo would later undercut her own prices. She had provided emergency repairs to Zephyrian military transports that were carrying supplies to outposts where humans were not welcome. She had even towed a disabled Nexari research vessel to safety, despite the fact that Nexari science often advanced faster than human research. Alpha 7, calculate the resources Captain Walsh has expended on these rescue operations. The AI processed the information quickly. Captain Walsh has spent approximately 40% of her annual income on fuel, supplies, and equipment for rescue operations. Her shipping schedules have been delayed by an average of 6 days per month due to distress call responses. She has received compensation for these services in only 11% of cases. Zentara 9 leaned back in her chair, her blue skin darkening with concentration. This behavior pattern is not limited to a few individuals. Show me the colony defense statistics. The holographic display filled with data from frontier worlds across human space. In system after system, human colonists were responding to attacks on mixed-species settlements by defending not just their own people, but every species present. The Kepler 442b incident was not unique. On the mining world of Xerion 7, human security forces had protected Kalthani ore processing facilities during a pirate raid. On the research station Beta Centauri, human technicians had risked their lives to evacuate Nexari scientists during a reactor emergency. On the trade hub of Vega Prime, human merchants had organized relief efforts for displaced Althani refugees, providing food and shelter at their own expense. Computer, extrapolate this behavior pattern across all known human populations. Alpha 7's hologram brightened as it worked through the calculations. Based on current data trends, approximately 87% of human individuals display some form of interspecies altruistic behavior. This percentage appears to be consistent across all human settlements, professions, and social classes. Zentara 9 felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature controls. An entire species that consistently acted against its own immediate self-interest was unprecedented in galactic history. It violated every principle of evolutionary psychology and competitive survival that governed intelligent life. She opened a communication channel to her colleague, Dr. Vex Troll, who was studying human psychology from the Nexari homeworld. His image appeared on her screen, showing the typical Nexari features of tall, thin build and large, dark eyes. Vex Troll, have you completed your analysis of human social structures? She asked. Indeed, Zentara 9. The results are most disturbing. Human societies appear to be built around concepts they call compassion, empathy, and cooperation. These values are taught to their young from birth and reinforced throughout their lives. Zentara 9 reviewed her own data. This explains the behavioral consistency we observe. They are not displaying random acts of irrationality. They are following a systematic social programming that prioritizes group survival over individual advantage. Correct. But here is what troubles me most, Vextral continued. This programming extends beyond their own species. Humans appear to classify any intelligent being as part of their extended group structure. They show the same protective instincts toward alien species that they show toward their own families. The implications were staggering. Most galactic species operated on a hierarchy of loyalty: self first, family second, species third, and everyone else last. Humans seem to include everyone else in their extended family structure, which made their behavior impossible to predict using standard psychological models. Zentara 9 pulled up reports from the Galactic Intelligence Consortium. Over the past year, intelligence agencies from 6 different species had tried to recruit human agents or predict human actions in various scenarios. The failure rate was unprecedented. Zephyrian military intelligence had assumed humans would abandon alien allies when faced with superior force. Instead, human forces had fought harder to protect alien colonies than they did to protect their own interests. Kalthani trade negotiators had expected humans to prioritize economic advantage in business deals. Instead, humans consistently sought agreements that benefited all parties, even when they could have gained more through aggressive tactics. Most disturbing of all, Nexari analysts had tried to model human decision-making using standard logical frameworks. Every model failed because humans regularly chose options that seemed to provide the least logical benefit. Alpha 7. Access the classified reports from the Voidstalker interrogations. The AI hesitated, which was unusual for an artificial intelligence. Dr. Zentara 9. Those reports are restricted to military personnel only. I have special research authorization. Access the files. The data appeared on her screen, and what she read made her skin turn pale blue. Voidstalker pirates, who had been captured after failed raids, were being questioned about their encounters with human defenders. Their responses were almost identical across multiple incidents. The humans fight like they have nothing to lose, one pirate reported. But not for themselves. They fight like everyone around them is their own family. We could not predict their tactics because they cared more about protecting others than winning the battle. Another pirate's testimony was even more revealing. We attacked a mixed colony expecting the species to fight each other for survival. Instead, the humans organized everyone into a single defense force. They shared their weapons, their food, their medical supplies. They treated wounded aliens before treating their own people. We had never seen anything like it. Zentara 9 compiled all the data into a comprehensive report. Her conclusions were clear and terrifying. Humans suffered from what could only be described as a species-wide psychological condition that made them fundamentally different from every other known intelligent life form. This condition manifested as an inability to prioritize their own survival over the welfare of others, including members of competing species. The condition appeared to be genetic, cultural, and deeply ingrained in human neural architecture. It made them unpredictable in any situation involving conflict, competition, or crisis. Traditional diplomatic, military, and economic strategies were useless against beings who did not follow standard self-preservation instincts. Most concerning of all, this defect was proving to be remarkably effective. Human settlements had lower crime rates, better interspecies relations, and higher survival rates in crisis situations than pure species colonies. Their willingness to cooperate was creating new alliances and solving problems that had persisted for centuries. Defense Minister Thrakvor of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the War Council on the capital world of Centralis Prime. The massive chamber was filled with the galaxy's most powerful military leaders, each representing their species' interests. In an emergency session that had been called after Dr. Zentara 9's report reached intelligence agencies across known space. "Fellow warriors," Thrakvor began, his deep voice echoing through the chamber, "we face a threat unlike any we have encountered in galactic history. The humans are not merely another species competing for resources. They are a fundamental disruption to the natural order of civilization." Trade Admiral Gorth Hem of the Kalthani commercial fleet lumbered to his feet. His massive bear-like form was covered in elaborate trading sashes that denoted his rank and wealth. "Minister Thrakvor speaks truth. Human merchants have been undermining established trade protocols for months. They share technology freely, assist competitors, and refuse to engage in proper economic warfare. Our young traders are beginning to adopt these inefficient practices." Dr. Kinvel of the Nexari Science Directorate accessed her neural interface and projected data into the center of the chamber. "The behavioral contamination is spreading. We have documented 17 cases of non-human individuals adopting human-like, altruistic behaviors after extended contact. This pattern suggests that human psychological anomalies may be transmissible through social interaction." The assembled leaders studied the data with growing alarm. The reports showed Zephyrian warriors refusing to abandon wounded comrades during battle, Kalthani traders sharing profitable information with competitors. Even some Nexari scientists were beginning to collaborate on research instead of competing for individual recognition. Supreme Commander Vex Carr of the Althani Defense Force clicked her mandibles nervously. "My intelligence reports indicate that humans have established what they call friendship bonds with members of our species. These bonds appear to override normal competitive instincts and create loyalty that extends beyond family groups." Meanwhile, in the Korathi Deltaran war zone, Captain Eric Stone was proving why the galactic leaders had reason to fear human unpredictability. His cargo vessel, the Starlight Express, had entered the contested system 3 days earlier when long-range sensors detected massive casualties from a particularly brutal battle. Eric sat in his captain's chair studying the tactical display with his crew. First Officer Nina Parker monitored communications while Medic Chris Taylor prepared the ship's small medical bay for emergency operations. Engineer Bobby Davis worked on converting their cargo holds into temporary hospital wards. "Captain, I'm picking up distress signals from both sides," Nina reported. "Korathi cruiser Blade of Honor is requesting medical assistance. Deltaran destroyer Swift Vengeance is also broadcasting emergency medical requests." Eric looked at the display showing 2 heavily damaged warships drifting in space, their crews dying while they continued to target each other with whatever weapons still functioned. The smart thing would be to avoid the battle zone entirely. The profitable thing would be to assist whichever side offered better payment. The safe thing would be to call for military assistance and leave. Instead, Eric activated his general communications, system and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Stone of the neutral vessel Starlight Express. We are establishing a medical sanctuary in grid reference 77 Alpha. All wounded personnel from both fleets are welcome. We will treat injuries without regard to species or allegiance." Chris Taylor looked up from his medical preparations. "Captain, treating both sides means we'll be seen as enemies by everyone." "Maybe," Eric replied. "But people are dying out there, and we have the medical supplies to help them." Nina shook. her head. "Sir, this violates every protocol for operating in a war zone. We're supposed to declare neutrality or choose a side, not try to treat both." Eric considered this. Human protocols actually supported his decision, but galactic standards required vessels to either flee combat zones or ally with one faction. By establishing a neutral medical station, he was creating a new category that didn't exist in galactic law. "Bobby, start broadcasting our medical sanctuary status. Make sure both fleets know we're here to help anyone who needs it." Over the next 18 hours, something unprecedented happened in galactic warfare. Wounded soldiers from both sides were brought to the Starlight Express. Karathi warriors found themselves lying next to Deltaran soldiers they had been trying to kill hours earlier. Chris Taylor and his small medical team worked without rest, treating burns, broken bones, and radiation poisoning regardless of which uniform the patients wore. The most remarkable moment came when Karathi commander Thex Null found himself in the same recovery ward as Deltaran Captain Quinn Lore. Both had been critically injured and would have died without immediate treatment. As they recovered, they began talking about the war that had consumed their peoples for over 30 years. "Why? Did the humans save us both?" Thex Null asked, his voice weak from his injuries. Quinlor looked at the human medic who was checking on another patient. "I asked the same question. The medic said they don't see enemies, just people who need help." "That makes no sense. We are at war. We should be trying to kill each other." "Perhaps," Quinlor replied. "But right now, neither of us is in any condition to fight. Maybe the humans are right to treat us as people first and soldiers second." Word of the medical sanctuary spread quickly through both fleets. Some commanders ordered their ships to attack the Starlight Express for interfering in military operations. Others began sending their wounded to the human vessel because it offered the best medical care available in the system. The situation created confusion and debate within both military hierarchies. Karathi High Command struggled to understand why humans would risk their lives to save enemy soldiers. Deltaran leadership questioned whether attacking a medical vessel was honorable, even if it treated their enemies. Captain Eric Stone found himself mediating temporary ceasefires so wounded personnel could be evacuated safely. His crew worked to establish communication protocols between the two fleets, something that hadn't happened in decades of warfare. Back on Centralis Prime, these reports reached the Emergency Military Council within hours. Defense Minister Thrak Vor studied the data with growing alarm. "This is exactly what Dr. Zentara 9 warned us about," he announced to the assembled leaders. "The humans are not content to simply help their own species. They are actively disrupting military operations by introducing concepts that undermine the basic principles of warfare." Trade Admiral Gorth Hem accessed his own intelligence reports. "The pattern is spreading to civilian operations as well. Human cargo vessels are sharing shipping routes with competitors. Human mining operations are providing technical assistance to rival companies. Human agricultural colonies are feeding alien settlements that should be allowed to fail naturally." Dr. Chinvel projected new data showing the expanding influence of human behavioral patterns. "We have documented 47 separate incidents where non-human individuals have adopted altruistic behaviors after contact with human subjects. The contamination appears to be accelerating." Supreme Commander Vexkar clicked her mandibles again. "My analysts believe that human psychological patterns could spread throughout the galaxy if left unchecked. Within 50 years, traditional competitive structures could collapse entirely." The chamber fell silent as the leaders contemplated this possibility. Galactic civilization was built on predictable competition between species, controlled conflict, and carefully managed resource distribution. If species began cooperating the way humans did, the entire system could become unstable. "What do you propose?" asked General Rex Thor of the Draknari military caste. Thrak-Vor activated a holographic display showing human settlement patterns. The humans must be contained before their psychological contamination spreads further. We should establish quarantine zones around human space and limit their contact with other species. "And if they resist quarantine," asked Trade Admiral Gortham, "then we will have confirmation that they pose a direct threat to galactic stability," Thrak-Vor replied. "In that case, more extreme measures may be necessary." Dr. Chinvel processed this discussion through her logical frameworks. Military action against humans would be complicated by their unpredictable behavior patterns. Standard conquest strategies assume that defeated populations will submit to superior force. Humans may continue their altruistic behaviors even under occupation, which could destabilize our own forces. The meeting continued for hours as military leaders from across the galaxy debated how to handle the human problem. Some advocated for immediate military action. Others preferred economic isolation. A few suggested studying humans further before taking any action. What none of them realized was that their fear was already changing them. By focusing so intensely on human behavior, they were beginning to question their own assumptions about competition, conflict, and survival. The very act of trying to understand humans was forcing them to examine whether their traditional ways of thinking were the only possible approaches to civilization. Ambassador Helen Price stood in the main conference hall of Concordia Station, facing what might be the end of humanity's place in galactic civilization. The neutral station orbited between the territories of three major powers, serving as a diplomatic meeting ground when tensions ran too high for normal negotiations. Today, representatives from 11 species had gathered to present humanity with an ultimatum. The formal sessions had lasted 3 days, with each species presenting evidence of human behavioral anomalies that threatened galactic stability. Now they waited for the final vote that would determine whether humans would be quarantined to their home systems or allowed to continue their expansion across the galaxy. Helen looked across the chamber at the assembled delegates. Defense Minister Thrak-Vor of the Zephyrians sat with rigid military bearing, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of absolute authority. Trade Admiral Gortham of the Kalthani occupied a reinforced chair designed to support his massive bulk. Dr. Zentara 9 of the Nexari monitored multiple data streams through her neural interface. "Ambassador Price," announced Mediator Quinn Rex, a tall, thin being from the neutral Valdari species. "The assembled representatives have reached their decision. Before we announce the vote, do you wish to make a final statement on behalf of humanity?" Helen stood slowly, her mind racing through all the arguments she had presented over the past 3 days. She had tried to explain human values, human history, and human motivations to beings who saw altruism as a mental disorder and cooperation as a threat to natural order. "Honored delegates," she began, "I understand your concerns about human behavior. We do act differently than most species. We do prioritize group survival over individual advantage. We do help competitors and show mercy to enemies. But I ask you to consider why these behaviors evolved in our species." Thrak-Vor interrupted with a dismissive gesture. "Ambassador, your explanations are irrelevant. The question is not why humans behave this way, but whether the galaxy can tolerate such unpredictable and destabilizing influences." Before Helen could respond, alarms began screaming throughout Concordia Station. Emergency lights bathed the conference hall in red warning illumination. Station Commander Alex Brown's voice echoed through the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple unidentified vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Massive energy signatures detected. This is not a drill. The assembled delegates looked at each other with confusion and growing alarm. Concordia Station was heavily defended and located in neutral space. No species would dare attack a diplomatic meeting without risking war with multiple powers. Dr. Zentara 9 accessed the station's sensor network through her neural interface. Her large black eyes widened with terror. "Devourers," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The ancient enemy has returned." The chamber erupted in panic. Devourers were mechanical beings from the galaxy's distant past, artificial intelligences that had consumed entire star systems before mysteriously vanishing thousands of years ago. According to historical records, they harvested organic life to fuel their continued expansion. Through the conference hall's massive windows, they could see the approaching fleet. Dozens of geometrically perfect ships, each the size of a small moon, moved toward Concordia Station with inexorable purpose. Energy weapons that could crack planets began charging with ominous light. Station Commander Alex Brown rushed into the conference hall with Security Chief Rachel Kim close behind. Both were human, part of the mixed species crew that operated Concordia under neutral oversight. "Delegates, we need to evacuate the station immediately," Alex announced. "Our defensive systems can't stop even one of those ships, and there are 47 of them out there." Thrak Vor stood to his full imposing height. "Commander, what is the station's military response protocol?" Alex looked at the Zephyrian leader with grim determination. "Sir, there is no military response that would be effective. Our only option is evacuation and retreat." "Unacceptable," Thrak Vor replied. "Zephyrian warriors do not retreat. We will defend this station with honor." Trade Admiral Gorth Hem lumbered toward the exits. "The Kalthani delegation will return to our ship and depart immediately. This station is lost." Dr. Zentara 9 continued accessing sensor data. "Logical analysis confirms that resistance is futile. All organic life forms should evacuate while escape remains possible." But something unexpected was happening throughout Concordia Station. Human crew members were not evacuating. Instead, they were moving toward the alien sections of the station, helping other species reach escape pods and emergency shuttles. Rachel Kim coordinated the evacuation through her communication system. "All security teams, priority is getting our guests to safety. Humans help aliens first, then worry about yourselves." In the Zephyrian diplomatic quarters, human technician Tony Lopez was helping injured warriors reach medical stations. A Zephyrian officer grabbed his arm. "Human, why do you risk your life for us? We were about to vote to exile your species." Tony looked at the wounded alien and shrugged. "Because you're hurt, and I can help. Politics can wait until we're all safe." In the Kalthani trading section, human engineer Lisa Murphy was manually operating emergency systems to help the bear-like aliens evacuate their heavy equipment. Trade Representative Maldtem asked her, "Why do you assist us when we showed you no such courtesy?" Lisa continued working the controls. "Because everyone deserves a chance to get out of here alive." In the Nexari research area, human medic Paul Anderson was treating aliens wounded in the initial panic, while his colleague Janet Pierce helped evacuate sensitive scientific equipment. Dr. Vextral observed their actions with confusion. "This behavior serves no logical purpose. You should prioritize your own survival." Paul finished bandaging a Nexari researcher's arm. Doc, if we only cared about ourselves, we wouldn't be much better than those machines out there. The first Devourer attack hit Concordia's outer defensive ring. Ancient weapons designed to harvest entire worlds cut through the station's shields like they were made of paper. Sections of the outer hull began vaporizing, creating massive decompression events. In the chaos, something remarkable happened. The various species that had spent 3 days arguing about human psychological defects found themselves working together under human coordination. Zephyrian warriors followed Rachel Kim's evacuation orders. Kalthani traders accepted Tony Lopez's technical assistance. Nexari scientists relied on Lisa Murphy's engineering expertise. The turning point came when the main reactor core began destabilizing. The Devourer weapons had damaged critical systems, and the entire station was going to explode within minutes. The only way to prevent a catastrophic detonation was for someone to manually stabilize the reactor from inside the heavily irradiated core chamber. Lieutenant Danny Morrison, Captain Jake Morrison's son, and a junior officer aboard Concordia, volunteered for the mission. As he suited up in radiation gear that would only protect him for a few minutes, he activated his communication system. "Dad, if you can hear this, tell Mom I love her. Tell her I understand now why you helped those Zephyrians. Some things are more important than staying safe." Danny entered the reactor core and worked frantically to stabilize the system. The radiation levels were lethal, but he managed to prevent the explosion that would have killed everyone still aboard the station. His sacrifice bought the evacuation teams enough time to get the remaining delegates and crew to safety. As the rescue ships pulled away from Concordia Station, the assembled delegates watched the ancient enemy's fleet continue its advance toward inhabited systems. But something had changed during the crisis. They had seen humans risk their lives to save aliens who had been planning to exile them. They had witnessed cooperation and sacrifice that transcended species boundaries. Dr. Zentara 9 reviewed her behavioral data from the evacuation. Humans had consistently prioritized alien safety over their own survival, even when facing beings who considered them psychologically defective. More importantly, their example had inspired other species to work together instead of competing for escape routes. "I believe I have been analyzing the data incorrectly," she announced to the other delegates aboard the rescue ship. "What I classified as a psychological defect may actually be humanity's greatest evolutionary advancement." Thrak Vor, still covered in dust from the evacuation, looked at the Nexari scientist. "Explain." "Every species in the galaxy evolved to prioritize individual and tribal survival," Zentara 9 continued. "This created successful competitive civilizations, but it also created limits. We compete more than we cooperate. We fight more than we build together. We fear more than we trust." Trade Admiral Gorth Hem listened carefully. "And humans? Humans evolved beyond pure competition. They learned that the strongest individuals and the most successful groups are those that can work together, even with former enemies. They discovered that helping others often helps themselves in ways that cannot be immediately calculated." Ambassador Helen Price, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "Dr. Zentara 9, that's what I was trying to explain during the conference. Humans aren't psychologically defective. We've just learned that survival isn't a zero-sum game." She gestured toward the view screen showing the Devourer fleet.